Okay, so this is a special presentation in lieu of what's going on all over the country, probably even all over the world right now. Everybody's so worried about this coronavirus, and I know that a lot of students have a lot of time on their hands. And since my profession, well, one of the hats I wear is an educator. I'm taking this time to put this lesson up. You know, you parents, you can thank me later. Maybe you could sit your kids down for 20, 25 minutes, have them watch this video and do a report on it. You know, I'll ask some fundamental questions that they could probably try to answer in an essay form or however they feel. But it would, you know, take 20 minutes for them to do this assignment and be up out of your hair. So without much further ado, I'm Kual and this is my co-host Maria, and we're tackling a serious topic today. It's a lesson for those who may be home with not much else to do. Parents, you, like I said, you can thank me later. I'll put up a Venmo account for you guys to, show your appreciation. But uh, but I want to tackle a serious subject. And today's topic or lesson is on Malcolm X. Okay? Um, and I'm just going to wing it because I consider myself like an authority on the subject. Like, I know a lot of information about Malcolm X. So, he grew up with a bunch of brothers and his mom and dad, right? But his dad was killed by some Ku Klux Klan members, allegedly, right? And supposedly his father was a activist and a leader in the Marcus Garvey movement. And so a lot of his father's sermons would talk about blacks being independent and self-sufficient and going back to Africa. So this is what Malcolm, as a little boy, was raised under. And then he had to deal with the tragedy, the trauma of his father being killed, allegedly by the Klan. So after the father died, like it made his family totally dysfunctional. They had no provider, no protector, and then him and his brothers and sisters were left to fend for themselves. And their mother wind up, having some breakdowns, I think, mentally and emotionally due to the father being killed. And, she had to be hospitalized. So then the kids, got split up and, was put into different, I guess, foster homes and stuff. So Malcolm was always a little bright kid, but he was one of many students and one of the few black students, from what I understand. And so he let his teacher know that he had aspirations of one day being a lawyer. And there was something that the teacher said to him that kind of derailed his dreams. He was like, I don't think that's a good profession for, a person of color. Maybe at the point in time he said a Negro, but whatever terms they use to identify black people or to be politically correct African Americans, even though I like black better. But anyway, um, it's like I don't think that's a good profession for a Negro. Like you should be a carpenter. Jesus was a carpenter, and it was just like, as a student, when you have dreams and you have goals, you want to be supported. You want to feel like people are going to help you get to where you want to be. You know what I mean? And when they kind of poison your mind with like not believing in you or not having faith in you or telling you you'd be better off doing something else, like that's really traumatic for most kids. Um, so, me being a teacher, I always let my students know that they can be anything that they want to be. If the mind conceives it, the body achieves it. So, I'm not quick to believe in a lot of BS, that the media purports, because I think that the media um, controls our mind through fear a lot. And I'm more like, I believe in like best possible outcomes, and I have a lot of faith. So that's what I'm guided by. I just don't succumb to all the trick knowledge that or the trick knowledge that the media likes to purport. But I don't want to be redundant. I'm saying the same thing over and over. So let's move on. So yeah, Malcolm just needed to be supported, and I know that he would have made a good lawyer because after he turned to a life of crime, he had moved from like places like Lansing, Michigan. He moved to Boston, and eventually he was in. I think that maybe he went to New York first, but I remember he was in Harlem and got in a lot of trouble in Harlem, and then he got chased out of New York. And then I think he had to go to Boston and set up shop. But getting in a lot of trouble as a young black man in this country with no father figure, no guidance, and having to figure out ways to make money when you weren't encouraged or supported to do it legally. People become hustlers, and that's what Malcolm was. He became a pimp. He sold drugs. Like I'm sure he did some robbery. He was out there. He was out there, but he got locked up. And after he got locked up, he was introduced to the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and who's the leader of the Nation of Islam, or was the leader of the Nation of Islam at the point in time. Malcolm, found the lessons, and so he dedicated his whole life to Islam and becoming a Muslim and a servant of Allah. And as hard as he went in the criminal world, he even went harder in the righteous world, and he redeemed himself. At one point, he was one of the names that he went by was Detroit Red, and he also at one point was called Satan because he was just so wild and out of control and rebellious. And if you juxtapose that to the man that he became as the as the minister of Malcolm X, and he even took a Muslim name, El Hajj Malik El Shabbat. Like if you juxtapose his moniker Satan and how he was when he got that name to who he became and evolved into, it's as different as night and day. It's as different as black and white. It's but he was very time conscious, very professional, very courteous, very articulate, and I hate that word for a number of reasons, but Malcolm could discuss almost any subject, any topic, and debate anyone, with what he had studied and witnessed. And he was a historian, and so he was ready to go. And I think that most lawyers use history, like they have a good background in history, prior cases, prior events and stuff like that. So I think that Malcolm used his desire to be a good lawyer to be an advocate for the spread of Islam. So he debated many people just like lawyers would have to. He represented it and argued points that put Islam a step over Christianity, and that's what it was in Malcolm's view. It was definitely a step above. He felt like Christianity was the white man's religion. It's a slave religion, and people take slave names, and so you take the name X. Like if I joined the nation, I'd be probably Al X, because my real last name is unknown. It probably had an African origin or whatever. I'm sure it did because that's where we come from. And Malcolm, his history proved that. So a lot of people in the nation, they have these X. They take the surname, the last name X, to represent unknown. And so that's what Malcolm did. And let's see, what else do I want to cover with the minister Malcolm X? So his teaching started to catch on like wildfire, and people became envious and jealous of him. And eventually, it boiled over where he was killed. And a lot of the people who were associated with his death, you know, were in were supposedly members of his same organization. However, through my studies and my research, I know that the government worked. They had a large part to play, and this is historically what they do in black movements. It's like divide and conquer, and they set it up where black people turn on each other, and you know, they create the fertile soil for all of that to take place. You know what I mean? So yeah, Malcolm, the Black Panther Party, a lot of these organizations were affected by people that posed as members that were actually plants by the government to, create havoc and destroy and prevent the rise of the Black Messiah. Uh, but before we get into like him being killed, we can talk about like some of his legacy. Like he was a very intelligent man. Like I said, he could debate on any subject. Especially when it pertained to history and black awareness. And he visited other countries and gained greater understanding of politics, culture, history, and how it would benefit the black man to know who he was and to believe in himself and to be independent and to probably separate from, white society so that, blacks could have their own independent black nation, just like Marcus Garvey and Malcolm X's dad had preached, so it was due to a lot of his teachings that the Nation of Islam was to the teachings caught on, and so mosques were being built all over the country because Malcolm was, giving speaking engagements, and what he was saying was catching on like wildfire. So he helped spread the information and to help the Nation of Islam grow. So this is his legacy, and a lot of people who came into knowledge of self, black consciousness, and wanted to do things to help their community, a lot of them look up to Malcolm X because he's the one that opened their eyes, just like Elijah Muhammad opened his. And a point that I want to talk about is, how a lot of times divide and conquer is, set up for us to destroy ourselves. And I want to say, like, hopefully we don't succumb to that. So, sometimes people in the same organization, may grow apart. And I think one of the most important lessons in Malcolm's whole journey is that, he had trained people to be loyal soldiers and followers of Elijah Muhammad, just like he at one time was. So at the point in time when he grew apart and thought differently and, wanted to go his own separate way, if he could have humbled himself, don't think I'm blaming the victim because I love Malcolm X. I also love a lot of the members of the Nation of Islam that I've had the luxury of meeting. But I want to say that I think that the most important lesson in his life is that when you grow apart, like try to part ways peacefully, and respectfully. Because if you do it any other way, it can cause or add to unnecessary tension or add to tension that is already there and just create an environment which leads to bloodshed. And you always want to do things where you have the best possible outcome. So had that happened, I think Malcolm would have, lived a long, prosperous life, and the Nation of Islam would have continued to grow, and they could have been two different um, bodies that were working on this for the same cause, but in different capacities, and that would have helped us greatly as a people. But yet again, we fell victim to divide and conquer, and I want to act out a little scene for students who want to learn more about the Minister Malcolm X. That was he was the minister of Temple 7 in Harlem, New York, and people would pack the mosque just to listen to Malcolm X speak. And he also would get on the soapbox in the community, and he was well loved and known in Harlem. The same streets he got chased out of for hustling and stuff. But anyway, so what's my point? Oh, so there's a scene I want to act out. So, okay, I need you to help me with this, Maria, if you don't mind. So at one point, there was a young lady who was enamored by the leadership and the speeches that Malcolm made. And so she was a college student, and after she heard his speech, she wanted to know what it was that she could do to help him in his cause. So I'm going to be Malcolm, right? You come up to me as this interested young activist that wants to know from Malcolm X what it is that she could do to help his cause. So I need you to come up to me and ask me the question. And I'll be Malcolm when you do this. Sit back so you can be in.
All right. So I'm sitting back.
Okay.
All right. Well, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
So I'm very impressed with all I'm hearing, and I would love to know how can I help with the cause and with all the messages that you're trying to spread.
I take it that you're asking me what is it that you can do to help?
Yes.
Am I correct?
That's correct.
Well, my answer to you is nothing.
Really?
Yes. And so that's how that played out. But, that actually did happen. And Malcolm said that, that was one of his greatest regrets that he had that encounter. So, so he said if he could replay that event, what he would have said was, okay, let me act that out for you. So present the question again.
All right. The question is what can I do to help?
Well, first of all, I think that since racism is primarily a problem coming from your community, I think that you should stay there and work to combat it where it's at its root. And I think that would help to curtail the spread of it, the growth of it, if you work inside of your community and convince your people to be less racist, better yet, not racist at all.
Okay.
Don't worry about coming to my community and convincing my people because they're not, the problem. They're the victims of the problem. So that would be my, how can I say, my amended answer to the question. Cut. Yeah, well, hopefully, this will help any students that are curious about Malcolm X. How I learned about Malcolm was by reading his autobiography that was told to Alex Haley, the author of Roots. So that's the book that I feel you should start with to learn more about Malcolm X. I've just given like a general overview, but there's so much more to this man's life and his history and his legacy. So, but start with that book. After reading the book, Spike Lee did a movie that was based on the book. Shout out to Morehouse and Spike Lee once again. You know what I mean? The house represent. So yeah, those are two places that you definitely can start. And I want to advise, since I want to cut this short, if anyone has any questions, any students seeing this, any parents seeing this that might have any follow-up questions, put them in the comments. I'll leave a link if you even want to contact me more directly, I can leave, a number for you to text me, or I can leave my messenger address where you can contact me through messenger. But yeah, if you have any questions, or you could post them in the comments, and maybe I can type out an answer for you or whatever. But yeah, I want this knowledge to get out. I hope that I can help to light a fire, that will grow and create the revolution that Malcolm wanted to see take place. So, power to the people, and struggle continues. Peace.